Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and today we are talking about a new rumor for the Nintendo Switch 2 that has to do with it graphically enhancing prior games that were on the Switch. Say maybe for example, Bayonetta 3, or perhaps Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, or even other games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. There has been some new info that is suggesting that this could be the case. So that's what I would like to talk about today. Unfortunately, for some random reason, again, they've shut down the internet in my area. So I'm not sure how this video is even going to be published, but maybe through some magic, it will actually get there. So we're gonna talk about this anyway. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers at some point in the year of 2024. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful. And enjoy the ride as we attempt to discuss Nintendo every day, even when we don't have internet connection. But with that all said, what is the rumor? So the rumor is coming from, I'm looking at this from my phone since I don't actually have internet on my computer, but the rumor is coming from Nash Weedle. And we've discussed Nash Weedle quite a bit lately, and to my understanding, Nash Weedle's never really been wrong about anything. So in other words, I have not seen any evidence to suggest that they put out false information. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that they've put out that have yet to have been confirmed. And there are only some things that they said in the past, like the Metroid Dread stuff, for example, or the Switch 2 dev kits, for example, that have been corroborated or confirmed. And then there are some other things that have been cryptic that are up for debate. Like when he tweeted out 3, very cryptically, the day before the Game Awards, and we got 3 N64 Nintendo Switch Online games announced, which doesn't really happen. So I think there is something there, but it's hard to say with 100% certainty. So yes, as it typically goes, when we're discussing rumors, when we're speculating, putting our own theories, take it with a grain of salt, look at the evidence, think for yourself, come to your own conclusions. That all said, this is what Nash Weedle is saying as of late, and this sounds really interesting. Leak Express relaunch. Bayonetta will receive a trilogy edition with its 3 main games in one pack for the Switch 2. The games will bring visual, HDR confirmed, and performance improvements. Due to backward compatibility, it can also be played on Switch 2 with improvements. Now, it should be noted that this is a Google translation. I do read Spanish, but it's much easier for me to just understand it in English and just read it out to you. But I think that pretty much gets the picture across pretty well. And there's actually a few big things about this. We saw some evidence in the past suggesting that there would be HDR, so that's not necessarily new information. But Bayonetta being put together in a trilogy, 1, 2, and 3, all are available on Switch, but putting them together in one pack for the Switch 2, and the games will have both visual and performance improvements, and here he's saying that it's going to have HDR, so that's even better. That's exciting stuff, so this is going to look pretty darn good. I think that's a big deal, because Bayonetta 3 came out on Switch, and there's a lot of discussion on how it just seemed to be too ambitious for the Switch. A number of frame rate issues, it just wasn't as smooth flowing as a lot of people would like. It's a game from Platinum Games, which are typically very fast-paced action games, usually running at a smooth 60 FPS. And so, to see Bayonetta 3 not really being that is a little disappointing. But in this trilogy pack that's being talked about here by Nash Weedle, I would assume that it would have some performance upgrades and even be at 60 frames per second. So that's exciting stuff. But the other part where he mentioned is due to backwards compatibility, so that's also strongly suggesting, yep, the Switch 2 is going to have backwards compatibility. But on top of that, he's saying it can be played on Switch 2 with improvements. In other words, I think he's saying that you can take your Bayonetta 3 cartridge, put it into your Switch 2, and after an update or something, it will look and run better on your Switch 2. Now, what isn't clarified is if your cartridge from the Switch version is going to look as good as the Bayonetta 3 and this trilogy edition that's coming out, or if it's just going to be like more of a subtle improvement. That's unclear. But regardless, the rumor here is talking about Bayonetta being put into a trilogy pack with visual and performance enhancements, and also talking about there being HDR support on the system in Bayonetta 3, which also means it's possible for other games, there being backwards compatibility where you can take your Switch games, put into your Switch 2, and at least some Switch games, or perhaps even a lot of them, can have improvements on Switch 2. And where this gets more interesting is when you think about other possibilities. So for example, Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. That game came out in a similar time frame to Bayonetta 3, but we heard that Ubisoft was actually fairly disappointed with the sales of Sparks of Hope. And there was some info that came out suggesting that Nintendo had recommended that Ubisoft hold back on releasing that game. And the general sentiment here is that maybe they should have saved it for Switch 2, since there's already a Mario Rabbids game on the Switch, and so they're not going to be able to enjoy as much of those evergreen sales. There's been a little bit of the speculation and conversation surrounding that subject. But with that in mind, Ubisoft now has the opportunity to double dip, get that second wind, put out an enhanced version on Switch 2, maybe even make it a collector's pack with all the DLC from the first Mario Rabbids and the second one together with visual and performance enhancements. Maybe that's something they can do, and maybe you could still take your Mario Rabbids cartridge, put it in, and still have some subtle upgrades as well, just naturally running on the system. Of course, I think we're going to need a little bit more information before we can really figure what exactly that may mean, or if that's actually even going to happen. But this is an exciting prospect. Imagine Tears of the Kingdom, you put it into your Switch 2, no frame drops, no matter what's going on. Maybe it's upscaled into 4K, and then we emphasize upscale, not talking about actually running at 4K, there is a difference there, but it still would make the game look nicer on a modern television. And so I think there's a lot of potential here. So assuming what Nashwiddle here is suggesting is true, Switch 2 is going to be really great. It's going to have backwards compatibility, HDR, it's going to be enhancing prior Switch games, and some games that weren't looking or running too well on Switch are going to have a second opportunity to look and run a lot better. But what do you guys make of this information? Do you believe it? Do you think it makes sense? Does it excite you? Or would you like to see a little bit more done on this system? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.